Okay. Come on back. Yeah, just grab a chair. Squeeze in there. All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about DADUs, detached accessory dwelling units. And just squeeze in there a little bit. I need to have you in camera frame here. There you go. You can see your awesome face. We've got some people tuning in at home, and I'd like to introduce our guests. Our resident experts on the DADU today is our own Seth Jennings and William Smallman. I know you're clapping in your heads and hands. These two gentlemen are studs of the business and have created a cool niche. In addition to certainly William's extensive new construction experience, this cat has built a lot of beautiful homes and been a part of some really great things in Nashville. And Seth is certainly on that trail too, and I'm real excited what they're doing. So I'm going to turn it over to them. We're going to have it's like this to be interactive, and you ask any questions that you need. I know that you had put it out there for people to put questions in. I appreciate you doing that on Village Exclusive. So I'll turn it over to you all.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I guess I'll start off. This is probably more question and answers than a lecture. Yeah. I think not a lot of questions specifically. This plan is this or whatever, but I'll start out first, just kind of defining a DADU. You probably know is a detached accessory dwelling unit. And the big thing I want to tell you guys is kind of what's in it for you and your clients, right? That's what you really want to know is what does this mean for me and my clients? Knowledge for you guys when you go talk to a client, they're asking you questions, it makes you look like you're bringing more value, obviously. So it's good for you to have the basics. I would tell you, don't worry about becoming experts in this because we do this every day. And I call them like, hey, what's this over here? Because Metro changes some things, it gets quirky. And then if they're in a historic overlay, there are different kinds of historic overlays, and it gets a little complicated, what heights are and so forth. So just kind of learn the basics and then just call me. If you have one property, you're like, what is this? I'll look it up for you and let you know. It happens all the time, or email me or text me or something. The big thing though, too, for you guys, not just knowing that, but a lot of realtors are always looking for a reason to reach out to past clients and touch base. This is a great excuse. If you've got folks that you know are zoned in an R area, which by the way, DADU zoning wise, it's R. So it's R80 to R6. You can do a DADU. Okay, if it's RS, if there's an S involved in there, you're out of luck. That means residential single family. Whereas R means, so for instance, Joseph mentioned one a minute ago, he's got a client who has an R10 property. What that means is the client needs 10,000 square feet on that lot to have 2 units. So if he has a house and wants to do a DADU, if it has 8,300 square feet, he can't do it. If it's got 10,000, or in your case, 15,000, he's good to go for a second unit. Does that make sense?
What about 9,905?
There's some gray area.
Okay.
Sometimes though, that's where we ask, that's where you call me and we'll check on things. So we've called Metro occasionally, we'll let that happen. We've also done some things. For instance, we had a client on Paris who was 7,800 maybe. Yeah. He was in R8. And we've got a partner of ours where we helped him basically go through the process of having Metro approve it. It involves like sending out letters, getting neighbors to sign, so on and so forth. He paid this partner of ours, like a consultant basically. That's great. To get it rezoned, exemption, or
it's variance.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you find, I mean, before we get into the fun and the pretty of all them, but the zoning, I mean, first and foremost, everything. Do you recommend people like check out Parcel Viewer? Is that where you guys use?
Yes, that's exactly what I'll tell you. Thank you for bringing that up, Teddy, because do y'all know this site here? He's got the link if you don't.
You're not using maps.nashville.gov. It's Parcel Viewer. And then when you come in here, if you click on the magnifying glass, go to address. Do y'all have one you're working on now or in process we can pull up?
Yeah.
Or a past one?
Yeah, 910 Montrose. Yeah, it's actually a really good one. 910 Montrose.
All right, so 910 Montrose, here it is. And we can see, I go to view parcel details, come over here to your left, and you can go to, I think it's, what is it, zoning history?
Mm-hmm.
And there it is. All right.
Now, this is interesting though, Teddy. This actually has less than 8,000 square feet. This is where it gets a little dicey. I told you it gets weird every time.
Yep.
So he couldn't ordinarily have this. And this was a client of Alyssa Cervantes sent our way. Nice. And yeah, sweet of her.
And so when you're looking at this too, be mindful that like what's over here on the left, like it may have been something and it could be down zoned. Like you'll see that council people are down zoning things. And sometimes that's happening without a lot of feedback from the neighbors, and they don't realize that all of a sudden something was mixed use and just became, only residential. And like that can really affect obviously potential clients or past clients, but be mindful of overlays as well. All this, we're not going to get too into the weeds of those things, but if you have specific questions, feel free. Yes.
Isn't there a DADU?
Yes. If you don't mind, let's pause that. So let me hit that at the very end. Yeah, there's a DADU overlay where Kathleen Murphy, not Kathleen Murphy, Berkeley Allen is at large, basically. She's kind of helping do that. I'll go into it later, but it's where you can get 30 contiguous neighbors together and kind of change your section.
Interesting.
If it's RS and it's in the UZO, the urban zoning overlay. If y'all aren't aware, the UZO, the urban zoning overlay is, you can get on, first of all, just Google it. Nashville Urban Zoning Overlay will show you a really simple map. But for quick simplicity, it's basically like inside of 440 and close to the urban core. So you got some East Nashville, it's outside of 440 and Sylvan Park, for instance. But we're obviously in the UZO right here. You got to tell you.
No, I am not fit to drive this morning.
So the reason he's mentioning the urban zoning overlay, one is it shows up under zoning when you're looking it up, but it confuses some people thinking that is the actual zoning. It's just an overlay giving certain rules for it. And outbuildings and DADUs have significant different rules inside versus outside.
Yeah, and outbuilding and DADU, this is another one. I'm hoping I'm too into the weeds, but you know what a DADU is now, right? You can rent them out, short-term and long-term. And outbuilding is similar to, or was similar to a DADU, but you can't rent it, and you can't have a range in the kitchen. Well, now I mentioned Kathleen Murphy earlier. She is a councilwoman who is trying to push a new law changing those rules, where it's only going to be a half bath and 100 watts given to it.
No, we're going to limit electric now.
Yeah. So it's going to be really, it's not going through, it's going through one or two readings. One, yes, let's go through three. So we'll see what that lists. So long story short, if it's zoned RS right now, I'm telling people just to kind of take a time out and wait to see what happens, because we don't know what's going to happen yet. They may get shut down, in which case you're good, but if it goes through, then you don't want to start building it. Obviously, actually, in fact, you can't build, they're putting a pause on those permits for now.
So if you were halfway through building something and then that thing went through, then they
You're good.
If you're permitted, you're good, as long as you have permits pulled properly. But it's hard to start now and try and get a permit.
Like you said, that was smart that they're pausing even review of permits while they're in process of material change. In the past, they've not done this, and everybody's like trying to get all the cats through the door before it closes. So it was a nightmare, as you saw in a lot of Airbnb stuff.
So what's the range of the zones
The range of the what?
for the DADUs? What you said a range of our.
Oh, yeah, it's R80 to R6. And there are other ones as well, like it's like there's like a several commercial ones that were on there too. But honestly, I don't go into all those because 99% of the time y'all gonna have people that are residential homes are. Just if it's R, you're good. Call me if you're not sure. If it's RS, the S means single family. That's the one that's out for now. It's potential outbuilding, but for now I wouldn't even. I just say no. Your single family can't do it.
There are a few outliers out there, such as Cleveland Park. And this will probably start popping up more, but there's own RS, but it's changed to an SP, and the SP allows DADUs, even though they're all.
They've rezoned the whole area of that.
Right.
Okay.
Significant change.
Where's your favorite place to?
So even Donaldson.
Another tip too, if you haven't used it, like, so obviously we're looking at their project here. I clicked on the one next door because I see this detached structure. And then I click on that, okay, so just let me see how I went here. View parcel details, come over here, and you can see all the ownership history, when it's changed hands and prices. But I go to permit history. This is real handy when you're helping buyers too, and you can see when did they pull permits. Oh, we just put in a new deck last year, with electric and plumbing. And just go see, did they permit it? You don't need to ask them. You can go look right here. So down here, you'll see if you scroll down, construct a 22 by 22 two-story detached garage to rear, single family residence to comply with this, 3-minute side, tells you setbacks, all the things, even about approximately how much it's going to be and who got the permit, things like that. Yes.
What are the consequences for some of the listings that you see that are zoned RS that have two rungs? see it now,
Mhm.
one particular listing, but it's one thing if certain things aren't permitted, like say, like a bathroom or a kitchen or inside the home. What happens when you get into dwellings and things are not permitted? What are the consequences?
Man, I've not seen somebody get past that. I'd be shocked if you could build a daddy without Metro finding out. I mean,
1006 North Raycroft.
I'm just gonna make.
Yeah.
North Raycroft.
1006 North Raycroft.
I mean, it can happen. If you don't do that, Metro will have you tear it down, obviously. So,
So they can make you tear it down, so that's like as
Oh,
far
yeah.
as it goes.
yeah.
You
You
can't
can't-
permit to check it possibly. Really?
We'll come back to that. I'm interested though.
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
trick is, if you get into, is it even permittable?
Say again.
If it's not even permittable, it's probably a bigger issue. If somebody builds something that's not even allowed versus not getting a permit.
So you're saying, even if it's pre-existing land, not allowed?
Just depends on how existing it was. Right.
You know, it's 2013.
Yeah, that's probably tricky, to build a house without a permit. That would be,
That come up too with the title work and the appraiser, I'm sure, and everything else is gonna catch some.
yeah,
I
I'd
want
say
to close on that.
there's probably specific scenarios of what's happened there to find out more so, but that'd be pretty shocking. To be able to even get electricity.
I can tell by appraisals before, if it's not permitted, they can't, they're not counting.
Good.
There's no balance.
Yeah, and I wouldn't think a sub would do work out there without pulling a permit for it. I don't think a sub, yeah, I'll
A
just do it without a
non-licensed
permit.
one might.
Yeah, the people can do it, but the point is it's illegal is the short answer.
Yeah, and know that too, in the sense of what work you can do yourself versus what a GC and how that permitting works too. So
Yeah.
there's some nuances to that, but all right, back to our DADU here. DADU, why do I do it?
You
So,
say that, man.
man, retrain for
Oh, let me
this.
finish my quick thought if you don't mind, so I'll get sidetracked.
Please.
This is a great chance for you guys to touch base with old clients. If you're looking for an excuse to kind of, hey, say, Bill and Jane, how you doing? Listen, do you know what a daddy is? I saw you bought a house. I sold you a house a year ago over here on Gilmore or whatever. So yeah, I'm interested in that. Say, well, listen, just if y'all want to know more information, and I learned a little about it. So you can actually build a dwelling behind you. It's a way to touch base with your clients and let them know. Because a lot of people would love to have the option for some income. They don't know, zoning at all. I can do this where, here or not. They don't know. You can kind of educate them, give them a chance to buy or to build an affordable investment property, because most folks now can't buy cash flowing property in Nashville. You have the dirt here already, so it makes it a little more affordable. And the second thing too is some of your buyers are going to be able to, if they build one of these, when they go to sell, they'll have a larger pool of buyers. Some folks, for instance, that couldn't afford to buy $1 million house, but $1 million house has a data in the back bringing in 50 grand a year in Airbnb. They're like, I can afford this thing. That makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Want to follow along in your FAQ?
Yeah, sure. Just go through it.
Wanna do
And
that?
y'all jump in if you got a specific question, just stop me anytime. We already did the property zoning thing, that is, and probably most of the zoning you're gonna see, guys, is gonna be in our areas. If you're in this area, it's gonna be R6 and R8, for the most part, what you run into. Are they allowed in historic overlay? Yes. In fact, I'd say we probably do 80+% in historic.
Wow.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they're all kind of different. There's different types of historic overlays. We won't go into all that because literally the other day we had a conversation. I was like, what is this? Give you a quick example. There are height restrictions and they're different in different overlays. We have a client over here in 12 South on 10th Avenue, and she's in the corner. So with her specific one, you don't have, but you can go to 25 feet with that overlay, right? Yeah.
So 12 South overlay, you can go 25 feet, which allows you to be taller than the front house. They just cap the overall height of it. But if you're a corner lot, then they take that back, and now you can't be taller than your front house. But it's specific to that. But then we call it historic, and they work with this and everything. So it's like there's just so much.
Does it go through their
Can't
review
really-
process?
It does.
It does.
Everything's not as easy to answer, I would say. It's like there's a surface answer, and then maybe there's another answer.
William Silver tongue came through with historic and
Yeah.
pushed their client across the finish line. But no, he's right. That's why it's not, because I was like, oh, we can do this. And he said, well, it's a corner lot. We had to give a little bit on the side variance. Kind
Corners
of
are
work.
always different.
Yeah.
Everybody used to think like corners are great, but the corners are not great when it comes to building. Because you got more sidewalk deals you gotta deal with, and setbacks are different than on a infill.
Mhm.
interior lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming from the garage off the side, it's farther back and so forth.
Yeah.
Had a point there.
Just so that was one example, and then there's other overlays where you have to be lower than the house every time. And that could cause challenges. You have a one-story house, want to build a two-story garage apartment. Some overlays will take in the topography, so if the yard slopes down, they'll let you build a two-story garage as long as it's below the plane of the house.
Right.
And then some they don't.
That's,
Some
they're pretty
overlays say
picky
they
about
will,
that
but
as
they
far as
still
what the
won't let you.
view is in a historic area. You don't want to see, you know, a modern Fern Avenue behind
Exactly.
a 20s Tudor. So
That was the point, I'm sorry. So historic is very ambiguous. You want a bunch of black and white rules when you're a builder, but they just don't have this. Like, oh, every property's different.
Yeah.
So that's the problem is, like he just mentioned, we had one on Oakland where it went down and they could have said, no, your cap is, but they let us do it because you can't see it in the front. They could have easily said, no, too bad, we're capping you at 22, whatever it is. They just happened to let us buy. So it's a little frustrating, but they were, that one worked out unfortunately. Yeah.
all right.
And with that though, if you guys are trying to do some of that on your own, talking to the store and see what's possible, always double check, because the first answer it's not always the only answer. It might just be one they want to get that day. So
Answer
it's
me
always
quick.
good to just
This
to double
on,
check people that have worked with it enough to know other options.
on our detached structures, I know that if it's detached, it's 10 feet off the alley. If it's attached, it's 20 feet off the alley. True? Typically.
Typically, yes.
And so even a tether, because it's always weird to me, like we put these detached garages and then you got to walk through the elements to get your stuff in the house from your car. I don't understand. I know we don't like front loads, but what's the point? If you attach that garage, you lose all your yard and it's all driveway in the back. So I want like a tether or a corridor, if you will, or something to get you out of the elements, which isn't at the point of the garage, is to get your stuff from your car to the home and not get.
Yeah.
So does the tether count as attached
In historic, no, outside of historic, yes.
outside of store? Did everybody follow what I was sharing?
It's like a
Just a
breezeway.
walkway.
Yeah, a walkway.
Breezeway, walkway.
Yeah, because otherwise, like, everybody's like, oh my God, it's got a garage. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna never use that. So you might as well turn that into a DADU, because that's just really a storage shed, because you're
Yeah.
gonna park in front or wherever you can, or a porta cachet or something, because otherwise,
Yeah, and historic also, you need 20, so the setbacks real fast, which you went into. Typically, you're gonna be 10 feet off the rear.
Yeah.
They're 3 to 5 feet off the side, depends on how big it is, and they just recently changed. Historic was 3, now they're 5, but you can petition. Just think 3 to 5 on the side for now. Now the rear, you can actually push it back some in the store. If the alley isn't too busy, up to their discretion, you can do 5 feet off the rear, for instance.
oh, wow.
And if there's no alley, you can even go like 3 feet sometimes. We
Interesting.
have one, the guy had no garage on it, it's just a DADU.
Yeah.
And they gave him 3 feet off the side and rear. It's over here on Lawrence.
Got
Yeah, so it's a little bit ambiguous. Those are simple rules to know. Usually it's 20 feet from the rear of the house to the front of the DADU, right? 20 feet of yard space there. But like William just mentioned, historic oftentimes have let us encroach on that and even attach portico, or whatever, issued to Paris. So.
All right.
Some of these old neighborhoods, say that you have some of these 20s or 30s tutors, and sometimes the driveway getting towards the backyard, my place, for instance, it's very narrow. Is there kind of like, is there a guideline or how much driveway frontage or you have to have between the house and the driveway to get access if you wanted to build accessory dwelling unit? Or no?
There's no alley in behind it, I'm guessing?
There's no,
Yeah,
but it is R6, 10,000 square foot lot.
okay. More construction.
I would say if your driveway's already there, then you can use it, but you probably want it to be at least 8 feet in general.
8 feet.
Yeah, but I mean, you get away with less if you get your car back.
You get a
Depends on what,
It's
what's
really-
functional.
It's really tight, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things that you have to be circumstantial to take it to the city. How high that
If it's already existing, they might not ask.
the driveway's already existing.
Right.
Okay. Now, what happens if you have, say, like a multifamily property, R6, R8, same circumstance, right? Duplex, 30s to. Could you do that accessory dwelling unit or no, because then it becomes a triplex and it's not zoned for that?
No, yeah, exactly. So give you a quick example, the one we showed earlier in Montrose, that's below 8,000 square feet. It's really, it's R8, right? The reason he's getting to have that DADU back there is because it's a duplex right now. He's gonna get rid of his, he's gonna take his house and convert it to single family.
Is it this one, 908?
910 Montrose?
Oh, 910.
Yeah,
See
not
right
yet.
here. Yep.
Yeah, so he's gonna get to use that. He can't keep that duplex and build his DADU, because that'd be 3, right? He's only allowed 2. Yeah, so he's just gonna he's gonna convert his house back to single, DADU back there, it's 2 units.
You think it's true that, it's not if, it's when that more restrictions are coming for this? So if it's something that you think you might want someday, time is of the essence. Is that fair to say?
I think maybe the opposite. I think it's a push for more. Berkeley's doing.
I think it's gonna be both. Actually, I don't think it's gonna be black and white. I think that there's gonna be some people that want to push for the idea of it, and some people are gonna push for the actual feasibility of it.
Yeah.
Get the from both and land somewhere, but there's always, my theory is that there's always going to be more restrictions, more that goes on everything.
Yeah.
They just may give us this use easier, and they're gonna overlay these other pepper restrictions to make it hard at the same time.
Yeah, I just think that it's a great thing to have, but as neighbors have problems with tenants, right, in certain neighborhoods, I think it could become more of a challenge.
Gets more crowded. You're right on that. I will say one of the things that I always try to look to larger cities for trends. And like in California, for instance, that's not a city I know, but in like LA particularly, these are big out there because it's so daggone expensive.
Yeah.
I was watching a show on HGTV or something. The guy was saying how like, yeah, we're making whatever it was a month. Others couldn't afford to live here. You got a tenant that is, so they're big up there because it's cost too much.
Yeah.
And Nashville's heading in that direction, obviously.
And that's why we have to start building HPRs and things. I mean,
Yeah.
lot prices just get high, and once they start being allowed, I mean, then that's the new price of poker if you're zoned accordingly. All right, so
Real quick, you were talking about just the idea of things that could push it sooner.
right,
Right now, DADUs can share a sewer line with the house.
right now, DADUs can share a
Right, so
sewer
it can
line.
be one sewer line, which means one sewer tap, just very easy infrastructure. We used to be able to share those on HPRs. They
Right.
changed that, and that probably added $10,000 to every bill.
Yep.
Right now, DADU's gonna have above ground electric and their own electric. And
Yep.
HPRs used to be able to do that, now they can't. That probably added another $10,000. So on HPRs, but if those two things happen on DADUs, which I could see it coming at some point.
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff I think it's gonna get peppered in.
I
It's
see.
like you can still do it, but now you have $20,000 in infrastructure that you didn't have last year.
So repeat that for a dad, and I think they're asking repeat questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking too low, sorry.
We'll do it.
So for DADUs, you can share sewer and electric,
Correct.
but HBR, you said you can't.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And sidewalk fees too. On that, is there no sidewalk fees? Are y'all familiar with sidewalk fees? It's kind of a hidden tax metro through and to stick it to the builders, and I would just pass it on to the buyer. But anyway, I'm a little bitter about that, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, speak to it though, please.
Yeah.
It's a point to just construction
Yeah.
and this in general.
Mhm. So when you build, say you're doing an HPR, they want you to pay a sidewalk fee, the builder pays for it. And the calculation is exactly, what is it again?
It's somewhere between $190 and $200 per linear foot. So if you've got 50 feet of frontage, we'll call it 200, that's $10,000 just pay,
Mhm.
or you can build it. But sometimes it's not buildable, so you pay. Sometimes you already have a sidewalk and you don't want to tear it out and do it, so you pay.
Yeah.
It's already a sidewalk, you know what I'm saying?
But unless it's built exactly to the proper standard, which got changed recently, so very little is built to that standard.
It's a hidden $10,000 tax. And if you're in a corner lot, it's even worse because you have more sidewalk. Hey, Kim.
So an HPR that's one behind the other, how would they handle the sidewalk? You pay that fee?
Oh, yeah, you're not getting out of paying Metro, Kim.
Yeah.
They're gonna get you.
The question was, if a HPR is front to back, how do you handle sidewalk fee? Same, you don't get out of that.
Linear footage of the front of that lot, you're gonna pay into
Correct.
or replace this
Right.
with the sidewalk.
And that's another corner lot.
It's
No,
Negative
it's not
is you
a
got-
lot, so-
But if it is a corner, you have two frontages, so you might have 200 feet of linear feet, which is very heavy.
Yeah. So you got utilities you mentioned earlier and sidewalk fees. You're looking at maybe 30 grand worth of, depending, obviously.
Yeah.
that you wouldn't have to pay if you're building a DADU. That makes sense.
Okay, so you don't.
Not now.
Not now, not for now, yeah. Yeah, that's the kind of thing maybe changing them. So,
Can you tell me what's going on when I see a property that's like, yeah, it's got a DADU, but can't be used for commercial purposes?
like a guest house, you can't rent it, you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, those are what I mentioned earlier, outbuildings. Those are the ones where, yeah, you used to build a building, you could use it for basically you couldn't sleep in it. So you could use it for home office, workout room, that kind of stuff, but workshop, but you couldn't rent it out. Now they're changing it where it's like, I mentioned earlier, where they're having like, you can only have a half bath if it passes, whereas before they allowed, kitchenettes, full bath, that kind of thing.
So an outbuilding doesn't have a kitchen?
Right now it does, but no range. So it's kind of like a kitchenette. It's currently, but they say that's the one that they're trying to change the rules on. So it's really just kind of put pause on that for now. We'll see what happens in the next 3-6 months, I guess, depending on how fast Metro moves on that. Can they hear me okay now? I'm trying to speak a little.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
I speak fast too. I'll try and
No, you're good.
who would rapido.
And so to go into that, they're just two different types of classifications in zoning. It's detached accessory dwelling unit or just detached accessory structure. And the ones that are the dwelling unit, that's DADU, and that means it's occupiable, rentable as a dwelling and sleepable, but the detached accessory structure is technically not supposed to be.
In a case what you may have seen is some folks were building outbuildings and renting anyway, because the average person doesn't know all these zonings. And I get confused, I do it every day. So they weren't getting turned in. So there are some folks that have outbuildings that are renting them out. So.
So is it not a matter of preference if a person doesn't want, what did you say, a range, you know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of people don't even put them in anyway. But the point is the outbuildings, they did not want people to use those to rent or even really for sleeping. You can't even have a guest house technically, right? I mean, people would use it anyway as a guest house for their moms in town or something, but the whole point was like, no one needs to be sleeping here or living here.
Because I feel like I've seen so many that are like renting out that they're not supposed to.
Yeah,
They'll be rented for like studio space, things like that. And they'll have like these gorgeous bathrooms. And
Yeah.
they don't care as long as they get hot water and microwave in there.
Yeah.
But it's like, they'll care about it.
Bucket.
So that's important for showing property, like to be mindful of understanding what it really is approved on that for.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just because it looks like an apartment, is it allowed to be one? Or would your client maybe want to risk it and then maybe pricing it accordingly?
And one of the things we have to do when we pull the permit is the owner, whether it's us as owning the property, building for ourselves, or if we're hired to do it, you have to file with the Register of Deeds a signed document saying that if it is not a DADU, if it's a detached accessory structure, you have to report something acknowledging it and saying that you will not rent it. So you can't be like, oh, I didn't know, because you signed something.
You're pinky promising Metro that you
But
know.
then when you sell it, the new next person said, well, I didn't know. I mean, there's a lot of that needs to get, is recorded and as part of the master deed, the deed of property, so that the new buyer's acknowledging that, and the time they want to learn about that is not at the closing table.
Yeah.
You can see where that could happen, right?
Question, and probably it's a non-question, but I recently had to sell East National in a lot, to get longer. And build out the existing in the twos. And that people ask me about that is, that's not saying that you can't build that, but if you're creative through architecture, perhaps you do that, so they separate the house, that part of the structure, so technically it's not that. You could get away with something like that.
But attaching it to the
But
house,
it's attached to the house, so it's not
It-
attached, well, as long as it meets, sits within the setbacks.
right,
Could have a kitchen though.
and then renting it,
Yeah.
it's probably gray area, honestly, because then
Yeah.
it's kind of, is it a duplex or not?
Yeah.
You
Put
know,
a kitchenette in it.
I mean, you could do a lot of things. It's just whether you're supposed to be able to, like with outbuildings, people build them and some people rent them.
That was the suggestion, like I said, I had to
Yeah.
sell. I'm like, maybe this, it's not technically.
Yeah, it's one of those things you could probably do unless somebody really wanted to stop you. Like if a neighbor was upset or something.
Or do the courtyard, if you don't want to do the garage.
Yeah.
Have it still intact.
Yeah, it's like renting a bedroom in your house.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I make sure if the client wants to do that, make sure they understand if you get turned in by a neighbor, you just spent X amount of dollars you can't use. So it's kind of your risk. But he's right, there's kind of a gray area. You put in 2 kitchens and you put a wall closing it off and Metro finds out and they're like, you can't have 2 kitchens and a wall. This isn't a duplex.
Is that fine, like, or it depends?
Pardon?
What's the fine, like, or it depends?
It's not really a fine as much as they're making change the structure.
They'll pull they'll pull your kitchen out. They'll pull your kitchen out, for instance, might be something they might have you do. Go in there and stub it off and like, can't do anymore. Open this wall up that you closed off, that kind of thing.
Outside taking like a line of credit or cash, is there creative financing options for myself or friends of mine who want to get into something like this?
Yeah.
Hey, you guys.
Certainly, you can do construction loan. I tell folks, so most folks pay either with cash, HELOC, like you mentioned, or construction loan. Construction loan is fine. It just takes a little more, it costs a little more, bank fees, and it goes a little slower. So you need to start like a couple months in advance to get your draws, getting your ducks in a row. Talk closer here. Getting your ducks in a row to your banker, because they'll say, we need to see plans, budget, this, that, and the other, your mom's maiden name, everything else. And then they do draws. So it goes a little slower. Like with cash, you can just pay whenever as you go, but the bank has to go out and do inspections and make sure it's done on time. It's not a big deal, but it's just a little bit slower, and it costs you, the borrower, more money than if it was just HELOC or cash.
The client that you have, you're taking the old building and taking it from the duplex to single family, building an accessory dwelling. Are you guys taking that duplex and converting it back to a single family, or are you outsourcing that to a different contract?
He hadn't asked us yet. He may, because oftentimes we don't do small projects, but if we're already building a DADU, somebody says, hey, can you do this? Depends on what it is, our capacity. We might do that for him. We haven't really gotten that far yet. He just wants to get this thing going.
If you've done stuff like that, what would it typically cost to take an old duplex, go back to single family?
Yeah, man, that's a big depend question. What do you got? Yeah, we kind of need to see it. I can tell you what new construction costs, like these things we'll go into in a minute, but if you're doing some things where you're going in and renovating or whatnot, it's just really hard to throw a price. It depends on so many factors, unfortunately, especially in a historic house like this, like his is. Yeah.
All right, let's continue through here on our list. Converting your garage into a DADU. I mean, can you go into, you've got a 2-car, can I turn that into a DADU? Doesn't always have to be on top of a garage like these.
Yeah, that's a great point, Teddy. Thank you for reminding me. I always talk about, most folks want the garages with the upstairs. A DADU can be just a small house. It can be a 500 square foot house or a 700 square foot house, whatever it
It's a
is.
she shed.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah. So for instance, if you had a garage you wanted to close off and turn to a DADU, you could. We don't usually do the smaller projects or that kind of thing, but some folks have asked us recently, in a garage, can I put the apartment above it?
Yeah.
It depends. I'd say more often than not, it doesn't work very well because it doesn't save a whole lot of money, or the structural integrity of their current garage isn't right, or they want plans that don't fit on top of that. But we are doing one on 19th right now. And I think the big thing was we had to check for structural integrity, make sure you could.
It was a newer garage and it was big enough. So a lot of garages aren't built to hold a staircase.
Yeah.
When you're not using it upstairs, you just have a pull down.
Right.
So when you come back to go to that, you have to add a staircase. And that usually hinders, like, is it worth keeping or not?
Sure.
And sometimes it is, but
Yeah.
not always.
Usually not for some reason, doesn't it?
Where's the one on 19th? Is it, how far along is it?
Like 45 days from being done.
So what does that mean to me? Is it, are we a drywall or?
Yeah,
free?
so drywall,
Stuff.
cabinets around, no countertops,
Okay.
tiles done.
Is it
hardwood's
locked up, or
going
should we
in.
Just go walk through it.
So that's locked up.
Help yourself, it's not our house.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Uh,
I'm kidding. Yeah, that is trespassing.
Yeah.
Whether it's new
Yeah.
construction, I know we just. kind of like
That was
Those
more
in,
client too. So
Flash our business card. Oh, don't worry.
Yep.
License number. All right, cost to build these things.
Yeah.
Process and cost. Take us through real quick.
Yeah, certainly. So if you have a client, say you send over to me, the first thing, if they have nothing done yet, the first thing we do is get a survey. Architects to do a plan, they need a survey. It's like their canvas. And that part of the front is a little frustrating and slow. Virginia, you can attest, you got a survey done last year. It wasn't quick, was it? Yeah, surveyors and architects are running a little behind. We've got folks who work with it, helps go through that process, but survey, plans, historic permit, if it's an historic, if it's not, then just go straight to metro permitting and then start construction. To give you an idea, like we'll build these things in a 6-8 month period, roughly. The front end, it's hard to promise because the architect may do it, the survey may get it done in a month, maybe even 2 months. We don't know for sure. Permitting in metro used to be relatively quick. Now it's taking like 30 to sometimes 60 days because there's so much building. So I try and under promise people. I'm sure y'all do the same in your line of work. When you're talking to a client, under promise, over deliver. And I say, this is out of my hands. Historically, it's been this, but if metro takes longer, there's nothing you can do about it, but just try and politely ask over and over again. Yeah. Cost wise. Yeah. So these things, this is what you build, but here's an example. So like the 1 bedroom, we'll show some pictures in a minute. The 1 bedroom, 1 bath, that's the larger one right there. But 1 bedroom, 1 bath, about 550 square feet, somewhere in there, with a 2-car garage, full kitchen, all that kind of jazz. Is about the mid 200s, 240, 250, somewhere in there. The larger ones like this one is a 2 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 1 bath or 1.5, I think it was. That's going to be closer to 3. That's about 700 square feet. Just so you know, on size wise too, the size of most of these, the max you can do is 750 square foot footprint. That means building wise. And that includes, if you have a little porch going off it, they include that for your footprint.
Is that why we've got one of these, is that why we've got this bump out right here?
That was probably the architect, wasn't it? Or what was it?
Does this count my footprint is my question?
It does.
It does.
Well, it doesn't count as footprint, but it counts as square footage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're limited on 2 different things. So-
And it does
Yeah.
count in setbacks.
Right.
Even though the joke of the nations.
Yeah. But the big difference though is the heated and cooled areas are 700 square foot max. So like, for instance, they're not counting your garage as square footage, it's not heat and cool. Building footprint and then heated and cool footprint or square footage. I hope it makes sense. Some lots that are larger than 10,000, you can do 1,000 square foot footprint, but you still are maxed out of the 700 square foot of heated and cooled space. So,
Beauty.
yeah, thanks. That's the 1 bedroom model right there.
Are they metered?
Can you repeat your question louder? Sorry.
Yes, are they metered?
Are they metered?
Great question. And before I forget to tag onto that, this is important with setbacks too. NES does things differently. We can ask. So for instance, this guy in Montrose, we mentioned earlier, he'd prefer a different meter. We can ask for that. Metro might just say, no, pull it from the street or pull it from the house. It's kind of to them, really. Metro's kind of got us. And I mentioned too earlier, the 10-foot setback, occasionally it can be 5 feet in historic, that kind of thing. Well, they got a little busier in Nashville building these things. The alleys got busier and NES is like, we can't access these things. So probably in the last year, NES has jumped in and been like, there's a calculation they do, there's a halo basically where they can get back there and do work. So it's not just up to whatever historic and metro say. NES has a say. They may, we had a guy, for instance, historic said you could do 5 feet off of Oakland. That's what he wanted. He wanted as much yard as possible to put the pool in the backyard. And NES said, no, long story, back and forth from the architect, we got it back to like 7 feet. But NES wanted that extra 2 feet to have access.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We can ask them for a client, but they may say yes, they may say no.
And usually they will give you the second meter unless there's a reason why they can't. And that would be maybe because they have the pole locations and they can't pull a second wire. They'd have to have some unique reason not to give you a meter, but that definitely happens where they can sometimes.
Question was, can you build a DADU as a single story unit without any storage or parking space? Yes, correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Doesn't have to have parking accommodated for the tenant, if you will. True?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of folks put pads by these, so it's like
Yeah.
if they do build one, there's no garage, they'll want a parking pad next to it, but that's up to them, up to the client to decide.
Gotcha, okay. So typical cost of building said underneath, 2-car underneath, around 250, but as it goes larger, you're talking that 2 bedroom there, you said was over 3.
That's closer to 3, right around there. And then if you just build like one without a garage, like I mentioned, that takes, with no garage underneath, depends again on what you do. That might take off about 25, maybe 1,000, somewhere in there.
Now, I always tell people, the cheapest footage is the second story. Not always if you've got a garage, but you're not going, but, right, you're not using land cost and you already got infrastructure on the first level. So that's why ranches are so much more expensive, right, to build new construction and get the footage for 3,000 square feet versus doing 15 and 15. Make sense?
Yep.
Cool.
Rentals.
Rentals.
This is good. And this is the big selling point. I'm sold on these things because I'm building one in my own backyard right now. I'm in Wedgwood, Houston, so it's not called a DADU, it's a little different, but I'm putting one in. Rents in Nashville, as y'all know, are going through the roof, which is helping us as realtors sell more homes, obviously. But some of these things, and it's hard to always say where rent, depends on your location, but they'll rent from 1,500 to 2,500. To give you an example, we've got a guy on Clayton who's got a 2-bedroom that rented for 2,200 and he under rented it. You can probably get 2,500 for that. That one, that blue one I showed you earlier, would probably rent about 2,500 in 12 South. Some of the 1-bedrooms are getting 2. And Airbnb is back, which is the good news. For a while, it obviously died in COVID, but you're telling me if you've had some clients that are making $4 to $5 grand a month,
Yeah.
depending on where they are, yeah.
Easily.
Short-term
I'd
rental.
say in 12 South especially. the 5 a month.
Yep.
On a 1-bedroom.
Is that a 2 or 3-car garage?
2-car garage. Mhm. Yep,
Are
that's-
they the same size or we just deceived here?
Different size.
Different
Yeah.
size. Okay.
One's 12.
And some folks will do that.
Now you know if they gave one or at least one, 2.
No, they park over here on this pad. You're on cover, Claire.
It's something else too, by the way, you can, some folks don't know this, you can rent the upstairs and still use your garage. You don't have to rent the garage to a tenant. That's why a lot of people put the pad out there for the tenant.
Yeah, so that, I mean, but you could do interior garage access,
Yep.
unheated, cooled, and just the doors at the top.
Mhm.
And then you walk into the
Yep.
cool space if it was more like an in-law suite or something like
Yep.
that too.
We're building one in East Nashville, and they've got the door like this outside and the door into the garage. If they rent it off, they can just close that, they can lock that off. That makes
Cool
sense.
options.
Yeah. Mhm.
Very cool.
Yes, sir.
Does those prices that you shared, that kind of includes your fees, design, is that everything? That's design,
Everything, yeah.
consulting, permitting?
Mhm.
all-
What I tell folks, some builders do, and I always encourage folks to shop around. I'm not trying to,
Yeah,
but the big difference is we try and give a number where it's like from start to finish, this is the number unless you add on more things.
something along those lines.
But,
I may have a question everybody wants to hear.
yeah, but so it's just one fee, where some builders go, oh, cost plus, so they give you a range and kind of see where it goes. This is like,
I like that.
that's it, yeah.
What was your question? What were you sharing? 'Cause you got it?
It's just clarification.
Okay, cool. Just wanna make sure.
Am I talking too fast, Shante? I talk really fast. And I
No,
was,
but your clarification may be someone else's too, so like, don't hesitate to share that too. So when you look at rents, okay, if you're gonna rent 250,000, you're getting 2,500 rent. That's close to, that 1%, that 10% kind of number I look for. Used to be able to buy property in Nashville for 250 grand. You're not gonna get 2,500 rent on a 250K house. It's just not how it works anymore. So it might sound expensive, but when you look at ROI for cost, those numbers work.
and new construction. So the first 10 years, you have little to no maintenance versus buying a duplex in Madison that may need a lot of
Right.
work
And you
on
can
it.
depreciate it, and you can, then there's all sorts of tax advantages, which is a whole other bag of wax. All right, trends and DADUs, man, I'm known as that guy.
You can't stop. You can't stop. Yeah, here's some of the big trends. This is a recent one we were just discussing the other day. So folks were building these for Airbnb. Then COVID hit, and a lot of people kind of switched to long-term tenants. And now rents are so high in Nashville, some folks are saying, screw it. I gave you the numbers a minute ago. Some folks are like, you know what? I don't want to have to furnish this thing and get it managed. I'll just do a long-term rent. It's still doing really well, not quite as well as Airbnb, but they're happy with the numbers and they're doing that. So that's been a big shift. And folks are going, if they do, this is interesting, if they do the short-term rental, Airbnb or whatnot, the 1-bedrooms are actually doing better than the 2-bedrooms. Not necessarily, how do I phrase this? They're booked more often than 2-bedrooms. So they'll book their 2-bedroom on the weekends, but they may go all week with a vacancy. Whereas the 1-bedrooms are probably 28 days a month. These guys are keeping them occupied.
Yep.
And more often. So they're chugging out consistent income or 2 bedrooms, not quite as much. If you think about it, folks that are coming to Nashville during the week are usually like a business person here for commerce. They don't want to do a hotel. They don't want 2 rooms. They just want 1 room kind of thing. So it's
It'd be
keeping
nice
them
if
going.
you could do, somebody needs to design a luxury bunk bed. So where it feels like, fit for an executive, queen on the bottom, and then you've got a full or a twin on top, but it doesn't feel like bunk beds. Anybody think this has merit?
Like those Japanese hotels that they have, this little tiny.
That's next level. I mean, that's what we're gonna do with all the commercial space leftovers, turn those into.
Yeah, I like the idea. But conversely, if you're doing long-term, the larger ones do better. Obviously, rent for more. So you can spend an extra, 40, whatever grand and get a lot more in rent. So they're kind of flip-flop, depends what you want to do when you're doing that. Other trends are too, and I always tell clients, it's like, look, I'm not trying to upsell you, but don't try and skimp on these things. We use designer finishes, don't go Home Depot, because what'll happen is you'll try and save $5,000 or $10,000. And like a year later, you're like, son of a gun, this thing stinks, I'm frustrated. You spend a little more, do it quality, you get better tenants and higher rents, and then a year from then you're like, oh, that difference of 5 or 10 grand is, you don't even think about it kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
That's definitely a trend is going a little nicer.
Yeah, you'll definitely feel it when you go to sell it if it doesn't match the home. Appraisals will reflect that too.
That's a great point too. Yeah, you want to match the home, so when it sells, it's not like, oh, this is a crappy little shed, this is a nice
Yeah,
house.
we see what happened
Mhm.
here. I see a lot of people using mini splits. I see you've got more of a traditional compressor situation here. What do you like? What do you choose?
I prefer not to use a mini split just because limit the airflow to 1 room.
Exactly.
And we've got plenty of space usually to run it up to.
Okay.
And the cost is close enough.
Is it?
Almost always
Yeah.
go for
It's
it.
amazing to me when I see people put mini splits in single family. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's interesting. We have a few questions here. Betsy's question, has any buyers looking for land in the Pegram area? Are DADUs allowed on estate land or agricultural?
I didn't see, again, forgive me, I could look this up again. I just did the R ones because what mostly we're doing is in the R6, R8 area. When I did it, it had I did not see agriculture, and I can Google this and put it on the Facebook page. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
No,
But I did see like, I saw some CS, some MUN, RM. I did not see the, is it AG or AGR? What's the agricultural zoning? They are, yeah, I did not see that. I can double check that.
But there may be some other use out there that's not a
Mhm.
data that would still accomplish the same thing.
Mhm.
Just a different thing that we don't see.
cool. All right. So I'm gonna add that to the bottom of our DADU thing. We can
All right.
update that. Do you have lenders that you recommend for DADU construction?
Yeah, would you say?
Yeah. Pinnacle, I would recommend Pinnacle anytime, just because they're Pinnacle.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're just easy to work with.
Yeah. You like
Local.
them for construction loans too? Most.
Yeah.
They're great and they're local and I like their style and it's very customer service oriented.
And, yeah, there may be other places with better rates if you shop, but it's one of those, kind of sometimes you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
If they are higher, it's minimally, and when they say they can do it, they do it. They always follow through.
Right. Other questions? Yes.
That's like HGTV. What is the difference between a frog?
What?
You know, frogs? I think it's the same. I think it's just regional. FROG, they call it fish from over the rock. Just a
Interesting.
regional thing.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's just a finished room is a dwelling or not.
Yeah, I've heard those frogs refer to like inside the house, like a bonus room above the garage. People will be like, oh, that's the frog.
Yeah.
You know, like inside your main house, they'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, what's this? You should clear the garage that's inside the house. But like the garage.
Yeah, so when we talk about it, whether it's attached or detached, right? Or could it still be here, part of that, right?
Then it's,
Yes.
if it's attached, then it wouldn't be a dwelling.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's attached, it's
Detached accessory building, yeah.
Detached, yes, that.
Not they do.
Now, that might be the frog. The frog could be able to.
So you talk that out.
Yeah. Mhm.
Clarification, so during permitting processes, when you're applying for it to be resident, it's sleeping, it's an overnight, like you can have a stove or not, right? Is that
Yes.
during permitting phase?
Yep.
And that's dictated by zoning and historic interpretation.
Well, if it's got the R zoning on it, then yeah, they can have the detached, the DADU, and it can have all, it's basically a tiny house. So I think, yeah, tiny house, you can do what you want. Most folks don't put gas in it because it's such a small house, but you could put gas
Just
in
like
it.
on our zoning, you could do an HPR.
Yep.
Right, but this is a cheaper way to create an income stream without building a full house or
Yep.
having sewer
Yep.
and different
And
utilities.
the main thing is you can't sell it separately.
Yeah.
So if you build an HPR and you permit it as an HPR, you can sell that to a different owner of your house. When you build a DADU, it's on one deed, one parcel ID. So when you sell it together.
But now this might be something as realtors, how do we increase our income stream? Is to talk through that difference, like how much material have you got in this class that you could leverage into newsletters, face-to-faces and meetings, right? Just talking through people about how to leverage real estate. These are what the annual real estate reviews are for. Just like your financial advisor is going to talk to you about what's going on in your portfolio. You have access to all the data. Why do you get in front of them? Because hopefully they have context and insight and expertise that comes from that. And that's when sales happen. They ask you, how much extra cash do you have sitting on the sideline? Yeah, well, I've just been sitting here, it feels good. Well, it's not really working for me. Maybe you should do something with that. The same thing goes with real estate, right? Are you using this yard, your zoning in consideration that you might want to consider building an HPR? And that's where instead of just helping them create income, you might create a sale, right? They may end up deciding, we're going to build a second home. We've got enough room behind our home to do a detached or detached HPR. And then you can help them sell that, or they may decide they want to sell all of it, right? Somebody wants to sell that as a package, and they might be able to be short-term eligible.
Yeah.
Numbers get really large and created, and they have a lot more, leverage to do other things.
Yeah. And you have a great point too, of thinking through what is the best potential for this property based on my client's needs. For example, I'm in Wedgewood, Houston, and so I'm starting the process right now of building early on, but I'm going to do an HPR right there because I'm not sure if I'm going to need the cash or the cash flow in a year and it's done from now. So now I'll spend the extra 30, whatever grand, give or take, to have that HPR there. That way, if I'm like, man, I need to sell one of these houses and I'll move into one, or if I'm doing a year from now, if I'm just crushing it and I want to hang on, then I can rent it out kind of thing too. Otherwise, but at the DADU, they both got to go together. So I've got some options. It's worth spending the extra money for me, if that makes sense.
All right, question, we're wrapping up here. Betsy, thank you. How would you distinguish a tiny house from a DADU?
Probably wouldn't. I mean, you can't sell it differently, but I mean, these are pretty much just tiny homes.
Yeah, I would say as long as the tiny house is on a foundation and connected to the grid, a lot of them are built on the back of trailers. So
Yeah.
the things that you rolled around.
I was confused.
Yeah, and like permitting, if I'm not even sure what the city's rules are on. I think a tiny house is almost like a mobile home, or an RV in a way. Right.
It's not attached.
Yeah.
I thought you
it's
meant
actually-
tiny
yeah,
house.
it's
You meant one of those tiny houses.
So-
Yeah, I mean,
My
a
bad.
tiny home by definition of that, I think what you're suggesting, Betsy, is something that's constructed in a factory. It's essentially a mobile home that's brought on site. And it would need to be put on, a foundation, and that's where Nashville has restrictions on trailers and
Right.
mobile units and accessory structures like that.
Of the fair housing, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a difference between renting out to investment property that you don't live on and then betting interest for somebody, your dad, there's some certain things that you don't necessarily have to pay attention to. Living on that property as well.
That's a good question.
I don't know the answer to that one.
But great point, though, real fast before I forget, and I apologize, I was getting the tiny house question confused. But if you do have a DADU, you've got to live, you can't just move out, you got to live on one of those properties and rent the other one. Yeah. Most of you probably know that, but yeah, they're owner occupied.
Gotcha.
And one other thing, just I
Yeah.
think to help when it comes from like educating people and clients. One is that I think if people have DADUs, when it's time to sell, that square footage is appraised. And it's usually counted at the same value as the house. So I kind of, if you're 2,000 square feet in your main home at 500 in the DADU, you'll appraise at 2,500. Two is just the income stream that can be generated. So if you borrow 250,000, like the cost of the data, right? You put down 20%. So you're borrowing, what is that? 210. That comes out to a mortgage of about 1,300, and probably only 1,000 of that's interest. So if you are bringing in 2,200 on renting, at the end of the day, you're pocketing $1,200 in profit every month, which that's if you mortgage it. Some people do it the other way. They pay it in cash, but they're like, it actually pays for itself in 4 or 5 years, especially if you're Airbnb. If you pay it cash and you're Airbnb and bringing in 50,000 a year, then you've paid it off in 5 years technically. You've returned your money to your pocket in 5 years.
Does anybody have any tips on how to search for property that have DADUs? What's that? Drive around?
Drive through alleyways.
What about real estate? Do you notice sometimes that it doesn't pull up? You just sit there and go, where is the rest of it?
Yeah.
Where's that feedback? But yeah, like the pool comes up. So see, it's only criteria that they have in there. So one of the things that you think it's in other room descriptions, miscellaneous other. See, I want to create consistency, otherwise for other square footage description. So let's do that, and then let's start at 500 square feet, right? And let's do what, 3729? Yes, we can do keywords as well.
I'd see a lot more.
That's probably a lot less data in 09 than
Yep.
others.
04 maybe, 37204 probably the
Mine's was
most.
1. 04?
Yeah, I can get you a lot more.
But again, if some agents, you'll know, they'll list basement footage as on the main level. Do not hesitate to report that, okay? The data is so important. So if you see somebody listing something that is an attached HPR and they list it as a detached, please go to the listing and hit more and hit report this listing. It's anonymous.
That one has it.
What's that?
That one does have it.
Great. So this is where you would do this, okay?
Yeah.
Don't be shy to do this. It's not like to piss anybody off. It's to help improve data.
Problem, my friend.
Data. Not say data. It's all data. Dumb data. I know. Some of this stuff. Anyhow, yeah, look at get a load of that data. Looks like a 2 and a 1. They got a 3-banger there. So this is active on market, and but just trying to create consistency between. Here we go. Guest house.
I've seen a lot of doing the 3rd floor.
Yeah. But it's not the 3rd floor. Like RealTrax has created criteria for us to be more intentional with how we're listing this stuff. So just what's that?
Especially when you need to pull that data.
Yeah, because people want to know. Like, I mean, it was hard before to even find something that was distinguished between an HPR and a single site build. You know, they read site build and they think, oh, it's built on site. Yeah.
So since they listed as a guest house, is guest house a searchable field over the additional field?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I feel like it's so rare to see that.
It is to me too.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of it, more than not, I've seen. They're probably just.
But there is, yeah, detached is not, I know we've seen people say, in remarks, if you put in remarks, you go to public remarks, then you can put in, all right, let's kill the footage here, let's spell DADU, right? And let's go see what comes up. Now this is searching anyone that put in the word DADU in 04.
Take out the zip and see what happens.
Can I put a county at least, probably? Let's start there. That's active on market. Anybody mentioning DADUs in their remarks? Yeah, I'm working on the same DADU. Let's see if anybody says it in private remarks. They think the public doesn't know what that is.
Yeah.
Yes.
For private, or I think for public remarks, you have to use that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's only if you want it, if it has something else in front of it.
Yeah. That's it.
So if I wanted to say, I wanted to search everything that said Spring Hill and everything was spring, I do spring and a percent sign.
It'd be so great if you just like click a box for Airbnb.
Yeah, well, that's a private entity. Now, apparently, we did figure out, thank you, the percentage. There you go. That was the ticket. Thank you.
What do you do? I'm sorry.
So what we did here, friends, hang in there. Right here, we put a percent sign in front of DADU. Percent sign in front of DADU. And this is active Davidson County. There's 17 listings. This first one here, North Second, you can see right there.
Maybe added.
It's in the public remarks. What's that?
And in the
And in private remarks, yes, and I would do those things in both areas. Question, have you ever appealed an RS to allow DADU? Does RS also prohibit Airbnb in general for primary residents?
Yeah, so RS, have we petitioned or appealed one? No. No, we just did outbuildings, and some people, I don't know what they did with it. They may have rented anyway without us knowing. That's not our deal. But like I say, right now, nothing's going to happen with RS for the time being. I wouldn't even try and fool. Don't try and, petition Metro for it. They're just going to tell you we're working through this. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So that actually does come back though. We talked about earlier, the DADU overlay.
Yep.
They could be brought in. That's probably the more feasible way to do it. And
Yes, thank you for reminding me. And I should have put it on here. So there is a website. I should have put it on there. But if you Google Berkeley Allen, Berkeley's an at-large councilwoman. If you're gonna Google her and put in DADU overlay, they'll pull up. There's a website there where you can see it here. Thank you, Teddy. Perfect. And it'll kind of show you. Long story short, here's what I'll give you just the quick and dirty. So this is for properties that are zoned RS in the UZO, the urban zoning overlay we discussed earlier. If you're in that area, you can do an overlay, but the big things are you have to have 30 contiguous properties. I'm not exactly sure how she defines that, quite frankly. This is a pretty new thing. I'm not sure if it's every single person that's touching you across the street or what contiguous means in that particular example. But here's the main thing is, if you are an RS, you're in the UZO and you're interested in this, I would talk to your neighbors. If you get a light person, yeah, we would do this. Reach out to your council person and say, hey, we're familiar with this overlay. We really want, yeah, it's actually a great website, a lot of information.
This prevents bad duplexes like this. Okay, go ahead.
This actually is really get a lot of great information about
I
it.
put a link to this in the Zoomers too, and I'll put it, it's in the document.
Mhm.
This document is in your agent toolkit as well, under classes.
Yeah, so basically it's just going to let you do an overlay, but again, you have to have neighborhood support, 30 contiguous properties, and has to go through council and all that kind of jazz. So I would talk to your neighbors if they're all like, yeah, really interested. Next step, call your council person and say, hey, here's the deal. We're really interested in this. What do we do, kind of thing. And your council person, if they're in favor, that'd be very helpful usually. If they're not, you can still work around them. They have to listen to your needs, but I would see kind of how they feel about it first, because they'll kind of hold your hand through it if they're in favor of these things. But again, if they're not, you can just kind of follow yourself basically.
I'm so grateful you turned us on to this doc, because that's legit.
They did one, they already got one, I believe, Will, he was telling me the other day, there's a few in North Nashville. I think I've already gone through, right? Yeah.
Does it say on this handout that if it's a HPR, they have to on both sides to do the decking too. I mean, obviously, if they're attached.
Unit DADU behind an HBR?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. We just ran into this recently. Yeah, this is a bit of a mess. You can't do, so an HBR technically, that HBR, you guys are in a condo
Right.
basically together, right? So you've already got 2 units on that property. So you can't add, that would be a 3rd unit. Yeah, we've got somebody who wants to do one. It's an outbuilding. And I finally got so hairy, her situation's complicated. I said, look, I'm gonna let you and the architect figure this out because I can't figure it out this year right now, but it's hard to. Outbuildings?
Outbuilding and,
We do outbuildings, yeah. Like I said, right now, we're not because they're not passing, so we're kind of pausing. We built plenty of outbuildings before. Mhm.
So technically, you know, in an HPR, you'll see there's 3 parcels to this property, right? So just because you have a fence between them, doesn't mean that you control that. Okay, fences don't determine ownership.
That's, no, we built that, right?
What's that?
We built all that one.
Which one is this?
Not accessory dwellings, the garages. So,
Universe of play here, friends.
so a couple of things on that one, if it matters. So like if you're doing garages or outbuildings on HPRs, the rear setback is 10 for a normal. But if your garage is over 700 feet, it goes to 20. And so that's why one of those is set 20 feet off and one at 10, because the second one put it over the 700 foot limit. So they had to have one at 10 and one at 20 off the alley. But in that scenario too, with HPRs, if you want to build an outbuilding, because you have this master deed that records your structure is here, and the rest of it is limited common area. And there's 2 owners of that limited common area, even if you can't use it all. If you want to build a garage, you have to get the neighbor's permission, and they have to sign, because you have to have a majority vote. Takes 2 people to get a majority or something. So that's one of the issues we're running into. It's going to work fine, but this client wants to build one, and in order to do it, she has to get her neighbor to agree to pretty much all the terms, because they can just say no. So height, setbacks, no matter what the real version is, you've got to make sure your neighbor's okay with it.
And I advise her also to call an attorney, you know, call Lloyd, Carney, or somebody who's in the business. You don't want to say, oh yeah, they said it's cool. You know, it's like, it's fine, but they may move in 6 months and somebody, you know, doesn't like you or whatever, you get trouble. So I don't know specifically, I'm not an attorney, how that works, but I'm guessing it's some sort of amendment that would to the master deed. So if something changes, they change their mind, or if they move, your structure is good to go.
Moving cars as well.
Yeah. Yeah, verbal is great and all, but need some writing.
Any other questions? I know we're over time. I still appreciate these folks. Give them a hand. Thank you. Any parting questions? You can find their information and details at NashvilleGarageApartments.com. NashvilleGarageApartments.com. That's good.
Yeah, it's us, man. Yeah.
Those two gents. There's the team. It's great to build a business. It's so.
You do, Adam. It's the only foot I get at him. I'll say one quick thing, Teddy. Thank you again for letting us do this. Guys, just call me or text me or whatever. Give a question. I get people all the time saying, "Hey, is this zoned for this or that kind of thing?" Happy to answer what I can, because there's just too much for you to. I still occasionally will get turned around backwards too. So happy to help.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Have a great day. And now you got so much more content to share.